Have you ever spent time in jail?
30 times.
When you was in there, what was going through your mind, Katt? I mean, some people like, man, I had an opportunity to reflect, and I was like, man, this ain't the place for me. I ain't coming back here. When you in, so what?
I've never been in jail, and it was my decision to be there.
You've heard the rumors. You've seen the headlines. But nothing could have prepared you for the truth behind what really went down with Katt Williams. This isn't just another Hollywood beef or industry scandal. This is a full-blown takedown, coordinated, calculated, and cloaked in silence. Katt didn't just make enemies. He broke the system. And the system? It clapped back hard. Stay with us, because once you hear what they did to Katt Williams, you'll never look at the entertainment industry the same way again. Katt versus Hollywood. Why they couldn't control him. Before the arrests, before the headlines, before the media circus painted him as just another unhinged celebrity, there was Katt Williams, the razor-sharp, lightning-fast, unapologetically real comedian who rose from the trenches of stand-up comedy into the Hollywood spotlight. But Katt didn't rise like the others. He didn't play the game. And that made him dangerous. You see, Katt Williams was never supposed to make it big. Not by their standards. He didn't have industry parents. He didn't have a squeaky clean image. And he certainly didn't have the kind of personality that could be tamed, coached, or bought. He came into the game swinging, telling jokes that hit hard and truths that hit even harder. His comedy was part stand-up, part sermon, blasting everything from systemic racism and police brutality to the corrupt politics of the entertainment world itself. And Hollywood hates the truth. From the moment Katt started gaining real traction, sold-out shows, TV appearances, blockbuster roles, executives and insiders began to circle like vultures. They wanted to mold him, market him, monetize him. But Katt refused to be managed. They offered him the fame package, stay quiet, play nice, wear the mask. But he ripped that mask off and threw it right back at them. He didn't just turn down offers, he turned down the system. He made it clear, he wasn't here to be another puppet for Hollywood's elite. He wasn't here to be part of the club. He was here to expose it. And he did, publicly, repeatedly, and fearlessly. He called out big names, shady contracts, and suspicious backdoor dealings. Where others smiled politely on red carpets, Katt called BS, live, in interviews, in podcasts, and even on stage. And that's when the punishment began. Shows got canceled with no explanation. Roles that were locked in suddenly vanished. Promoters started ghosting. Friends and collaborators, gone. Doors that were wide open slammed shut. And don't forget the timing. Just as he hit peak success with stand-up specials like Pimp Chronicles and It's Pimpin', the media machine flipped. Suddenly, he was no longer the brilliant, unfiltered comic genius. He was problematic, hard to work with, unstable. Sound familiar? Because this isn't a new story. It's the classic Hollywood hit job. The second you step out of line, the second you stop being profitable or pliable. They don't just cut ties. They ruin you. They rewrite your narrative. They assassinate your character in public while congratulating themselves behind closed doors. Katt Williams wasn't losing control. He was fighting for it. And instead of folding, he doubled down. He stayed independent. He started producing his own content, touring without big-name sponsors, speaking out louder, clearer, and with even more fire. But make no mistake, there was a price. The blacklist was real. The isolation was intense, and the smear campaigns, ruthless. Yet somehow, through all the attacks, the legal drama, the arrests, and the silence from his peers, Katt survived. Not because the industry protected him, but because the people never stopped showing up. That's the part they couldn't predict. That's what they still don't understand. You can cancel a man in Hollywood, but you can't cancel someone the streets, the fans, the culture ride for. And for all his flaws, Katt Williams stayed something so few ever dare to be in showbiz. Authentic. He didn't sell out. He didn't kiss the ring. And that's why they couldn't control him. That's why they had to destroy him. But guess what? It didn't work. Arrested again and again and again. Let's talk about the arrests, because they didn't just happen once, or twice, or even 5 times. Katt Williams has been arrested over a dozen times in less than a decade. And while the tabloids were busy blasting mugshots and clickbait headlines, almost nobody was asking the real question. Why does this keep happening? Because let's get one thing straight. Katt wasn't out here robbing banks or running drug empires. These arrests were often for petty, bizarre, even unbelievable things, like assaulting a tractor driver, stealing coins from a pool house, punching a teenager, arguing with a store clerk. Petty, petty, petty. And here's the kicker. Many of these charges were dropped, quietly, with little to no evidence. But by the time that happened, the damage was done. The media had already painted him as unstable, unhinged, a man spiraling out of control. But what if that was the point? Because when you look at the pattern, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like character assassination by design. Think about it. Every time Katt Williams gained momentum, another bizarre legal issue popped up. He'd do a sold-out tour or a viral interview, and then boom, another arrest. Was it all just bad luck, or was it a message? Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. The entertainment industry has a long, dirty history of destroying people who won't fall in line. And when they can't shut you up with money or silence you with threats, they move on to Plan C. Discredit you. If they can't kill your voice, they kill your image. And for Katt Williams, the method was simple. Turn the public against him by making him look like a ticking time bomb, a liability, a joke. And they almost pulled it off. The media played its part flawlessly. Every article was laced with sarcasm. Every news anchor gave a little smirk. Oh, look, Katt's been arrested again. But they never mentioned the context, the harassment, the surveillance, the setup. That's right, setup. In multiple interviews, Katt hinted that many of his legal problems weren't organic. He claimed he was being targeted, followed, provoked. In one particularly explosive moment, he said, "I'm not a danger to society. I'm a danger to the lie." Read that again. Katt wasn't just getting into fights. He was baited. He was harassed. People pulled phones on him, shouted at him in public, waiting for a reaction. And if he slipped, even slightly, boom, arrest, headline, mugshot. Another strike against his name. Let's not forget, this is a man who built his own fan base, who refused to sign the dotted line with major power players, who called out Netflix for its double standards and put executives on blast. That kind of defiance doesn't go unpunished in Hollywood. They wanted him labeled. They wanted him disgraced. They wanted people to roll their eyes when his name came up, so they wouldn't listen when he spoke the truth. And for a while, it worked. Katt became the punchline instead of the powerhouse. The media buried his brilliance beneath a pile of messy headlines. But those who paid attention, those who really listened, saw through the smoke. Because here's what the headlines didn't say. Even during his so-called meltdowns, Katt was still showing up for shows, still delivering brilliant performances, still speaking truth to power. He wasn't spiraling. He was surviving. Under pressure most of us couldn't even imagine. So ask yourself, if Katt Williams was so dangerous, so erratic, so out of control, why is he still here? Because maybe he wasn't the villain they made him out to be. Maybe he was the victim of a machine that didn't know how to silence him any other way. And maybe, just maybe, they were scared of what would happen if the world actually listened. Katt calls out the industry elite. Now this is where things start to get dangerous, because most celebrities know the rules. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, you don't name names, you don't talk about the real power behind the curtain. You smile, you nod, you play the game. But Katt Williams? He burned the entire rulebook. He didn't just imply that something shady was happening in Hollywood. He said it outright. He didn't hint at powerful forces. He called out names, big ones, names that made the industry twitch, names people only whisper behind closed doors. And when he talked, he didn't sugarcoat. He accused certain celebrities of selling their souls, literally and metaphorically. He said some of the most famous, most beloved stars didn't earn their success through talent, but through compliance, through submission, through rituals and contracts and backroom deals that had nothing to do with art. In one infamous interview, he laid it all out. The reason you don't see real ones at the top is because real ones don't do the things required to get there. Let that sink in. Katt Williams wasn't just trash talking, he was dropping bombs. And he wasn't wrong. We've seen it over and over again. Talented artists get shelved, blacklisted, erased, while others, less talented, more compliant, get promoted to superstar status overnight. Why? Because they're safe, because they follow orders, because they keep their mouths shut. Katt didn't. And every time he grabbed a mic, whether it was on stage or in an interview, he took a sledgehammer to the facade of fame. He spoke on industry predators, on secret parties, on exploitation. He even warned young artists to run from certain executives, to avoid the glittering offers, because not everything that shines is gold. And in Hollywood, sometimes it's just well-polished evil. And guess what? The moment he started exposing all this, the attacks intensified. His interviews were chopped up to make him look crazy. Headlines called him delusional. His name was lumped in with conspiracy theorists. They tried to turn him into a meme, a joke, a cautionary tale. Because Katt Williams committed the one unforgivable sin in the entertainment industry, telling the truth. He even dared to compare himself to other whistleblowers who were taken out or silenced. He hinted that the same fate awaited him if people didn't start paying attention. That's why, he said, he wasn't afraid to die, because they already tried to kill his character. And let's be clear, he wasn't saying these things for clout. Katt had nothing to gain by speaking out. In fact, it cost him everything. Deals vanished. Friends distanced themselves. He was painted as paranoid, blackballed. But through it all, he kept talking. Because once you know the truth, you can't go back to pretending. And now, years later, more people are starting to connect the dots. More people are waking up to the ugly truth that Katt Williams screamed about when everyone else stayed silent. People who once laughed at him are now realizing he was right. So when he calls out the elite, when he speaks about the industry machine chewing up young stars and spitting them out, maybe we should stop asking, what's wrong with Katt? And start asking, what was he warning us about? The comedy beef. Katt versus Kevin Hart. Oh, now we're getting into the meat of the drama. If you followed comedy at all over the last decade, you already know there's been a Cold War brewing between Katt Williams and Kevin Hart. But this wasn't just about jokes. This question mark. This was personal. This was warfare. And it went way deeper than anybody thought. Let's rewind. Back in the early 2000s, both Katt and Kevin were hungry. Both were rising stars. But while Kevin Hart's career took off into mainstream superstardom, with blockbuster movies, Netflix deals, and Super Bowl commercials, Katt Williams' path seemed cursed, blocked, sabotaged, constant arrests, media attacks, industry roadblocks. And Katt noticed. That's when the gloves came off. In multiple interviews, uncensored, unfiltered, Katt dragged Kevin Hart. He accused him of being the industry's puppet. He claimed Kevin didn't rise through comedy the real way, but was handpicked, groomed, fast-tracked. Katt said Kevin played it safe, avoided speaking truth, and in return was rewarded with a career most comedians could only dream of. Quote, "Don't compare me to Kevin Hart, that's a woman. That's not a real man, I'm a lion." Wow. Katt didn't hold back. He said Kevin was only successful because he agreed to do what they asked, that he never said no, that he was safe, uncontroversial, and corporate-friendly. And in Hollywood, that's exactly what they want. And here's where it gets sinister. Katt didn't just suggest favoritism. He implied ritual. He hinted that Kevin Hart's meteoric rise wasn't organic, that there were strings attached, that the people at the top had a plan for him, and Kevin was willing to play the part. Whether or not that's true, it sent shockwaves through the industry. But Kevin? Oh, he wasn't staying silent. He clapped back, subtly at first, then directly. He said Katt was jealous, that he should stop blaming everyone else for his own mistakes. He painted Katt as self-destructive, irresponsible, and bitter. The classic deflection. I worked hard, you messed up. End of story. But is that the whole truth? Because let's be real, Katt's comedy was raw, brilliant, and original. He wasn't some washed-up hack. People loved him. Fans showed up even when the media tore him apart. So why did his opportunities dry up while Kevin became the golden boy? It's not just about talent, it's about compliance. Kevin Hart is bankable because he never crosses the line. He doesn't talk about race or politics unless it's cute and digestible. He doesn't challenge the system, he reinforces it. Meanwhile, Katt Williams exposed the dark side of the business. He pulled the curtain back. He called out power structures, executives, and even his fellow comedians. And that made him dangerous. So what we're really seeing isn't just two comedians beefing. We're watching a collision of two paths. One man who told the truth and paid the price. Another who played the game and got the reward. Katt versus Kevin wasn't about jokes. It was about control. About who gets the mic. About who gets to shape the narrative. And about what happens to someone who refuses to play along. So next time you see a comedy special trending, or a new movie trailer drops, ask yourself, who's really behind the laughs? And who's been silenced to keep the machine running? When the laughter stops, the moment people realized Katt was right. At first, it was easy to laugh. I mean, come on. This is Katt Williams we're talking about. The loud suits, the outrageous punchlines, the over-the-top performances. He was the clown prince of the comedy world. A walking meme, a punchline machine. But then, something shifted. The laughter, it started to feel uncomfortable. Not because Katt got less funny, but because people started to realize he wasn't joking anymore. Go back and watch those stand-up sets. Watch the interviews. Listen closely. In between the roasts and rants, there was something else. A pattern, a message, a warning. And as the years went on, those warnings started coming true. The predators he hinted at? Exposed. The industry exploitation? Confirmed. The comedians he said were chosen and controlled? Suddenly, everywhere, saying nothing. And suddenly, that crazy energy people laughed at? It started to sound like truth. Raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable truth. The kind that makes you shift in your seat. The kind that doesn't trend, but lingers. Because Katt was never just angry. He was hurt. He was watching what Hollywood did to people like him. Artists who wouldn't sell out, wouldn't conform, wouldn't be quiet. He watched them get destroyed, discredited, forgotten. And still, he stood on that stage and said, I know what they're doing, and I'm going to talk about it anyway. That was the moment people stopped laughing. The moment they paused the video, looked around and said, hold up, was Katt Williams right this whole time? And that brings us to the part of the story no one saw coming. Because once you realize Katt wasn't just trying to make you laugh, you start to understand he was trying to wake you up. A modern-day prophet? You know what's wild? When people used to talk about Katt Williams in the 2010s, they laughed. They rolled their eyes. That dude's always getting arrested. Oh, Katt's wildin' again. He's probably on something. But now people are starting to listen. Because when you go back and watch those old interviews, those fiery, chaotic, he's lost it moments, you realize this man wasn't spiraling, he was testifying. Katt Williams didn't just tell jokes, he dropped warnings. He used that microphone like a megaphone, yelling to anyone who would hear, this system is sick, they're lying to you. Fame is a trap. And almost everything he said, back then, when it sounded crazy, has started to come true. He predicted the exploitation of young stars. He exposed the fake friendships and sellout contracts. He called out the predators before documentaries were even made. He even warned us that cancel culture wasn't about justice. It was about control. And here's what makes it even more chilling. Katt Williams knew the cost of truth. He once said, "I already made peace with the fact that they might kill me." I just hope y'all remember what I said. Now pause. Really let that sink in. Because most comedians joke about sex, relationships, and everyday life. Katt? He risked everything to talk about the invisible war behind the red carpet. He warned about spiritual warfare, Hollywood manipulation, and how black voices are often used, then tossed aside. He even drew comparisons between himself and fallen legends, artists who died mysteriously after speaking out. He mentioned Michael Jackson, Prince, and Dave Chappelle's breakdown. He wasn't saying he was better. He was saying the pattern was real. And the more he talked, the more the industry tried to erase him. They didn't just come for his career. They came for his sanity. They tried to make us believe Katt Williams was just another eccentric celebrity who couldn't handle fame. But maybe, just maybe, he was never crazy at all. Maybe he was clearer than the rest. And that's why people today, especially younger fans, are circling back. They're watching those old rants on YouTube and TikTok. They're realizing, wait, Katt was speaking facts. He warned us about the fake beefs used to distract us. He told us how celebrity narratives are manufactured. He begged us not to worship entertainers like gods. Because behind the glitz, many are suffering. He didn't want the clout, he wanted truth. And in doing so, he became more than a comic. He became a messenger, a modern-day prophet, screaming into a storm of denial, saying, "Wake up, the truth is right in front of you." So maybe the real question isn't, what happened to Katt Williams? Maybe it's, why didn't we listen sooner? The price of truth. By now it should be crystal clear. Katt Williams wasn't just punished for his actions. He was punished for his truth. Because let's be real, Hollywood is a place where silence is currency. Keep your mouth shut, you'll be fine. Smile for the cameras, read your lines, hit your marks, and you'll get your check. Maybe even an award or two. But the moment you start peeling back the curtain, the moment you say, "Nah, this ain't right," that's when they come for you. And they came for Katt. Hard. Let's run the receipts. Multiple arrests. Some for things as wild as breaking into a house he was renting. Think about that. He's accused of stealing from a house he lived in. And that's just one example. There were assault allegations, gun charges, drug busts, mental breakdown headlines, and more. Now, were some of those incidents Katt's own doing? Maybe. No one's denying the man had a few wild nights. But all of them? Back to back to back? That's not chaos. That's character assassination. Because while the headlines were screaming about his latest arrest, what wasn't getting coverage? His social commentary, his interviews calling out gatekeepers, his messages to young black entertainers telling them not to sell out. That didn't make the news. But Katt goes crazy again? That was everywhere. They painted him as unhinged, erratic, dangerous, even unstable. But was he unstable or just unfiltered? Was he reckless or just raw? And here's the kicker. While Katt was being dragged through the mud, lesser comedians were given his spot. They got the Netflix deals, the movie scripts, the late-night interviews. The industry made it clear, this is what happens when you speak out, and this is what you get when you obey. It wasn't just a takedown, it was a message. And for Katt, the price wasn't just professional, it was personal. He lost friends, mentors, financial security. Even fans turned on him for a while, buying into the crazy comedian narrative the media spoon-fed them. But you know what he never lost? His voice. He never apologized for telling the truth. He never backed down. Even after everything, after being blackballed, arrested, and nearly erased, he still got on that stage, mic in hand, and told the truth anyway. Because when it comes down to it, Katt Williams made a choice. He could have sold out. He could have played safe. He could have taken the check and kept his mouth shut, but he chose freedom over fame. And in an industry where silence is rewarded and truth is punished, That choice made him dangerous, untouchable, legendary. So the next time you hear someone call Katt Williams a fall-off or a joke, remember this. He didn't fall off. He walked away from the machine, and the machine's been trying to crush him ever since. The comeback of a king. They tried to write him off. They called him washed, canceled, too problematic to touch. For years, Katt Williams was blackballed by the very industry he once lit on fire. But you know what they didn't count on? A king rising on his own terms. Because Katt didn't just survive the smear campaigns, the arrests, and the silence. He outlived the lies. And when he returned, he didn't come back begging. He came back unbothered, unfiltered, and funnier than ever. The Dark Matter Netflix special? A full-force reminder that the crown was never taken. It was just waiting. With that comeback, Katt showed the world. Real ones don't need to chase clout. When your talent is unmatched and your truth is undeniable, they can't stop the comeback. They can only delay it. Because the thing about kings, they don't need a throne to rule. They build their own empire. And Katt Williams just reclaimed his. This isn't the end of the Katt Williams story. It might just be the beginning. So whether you laughed at him, doubted him, or forgot about him, just know, the king never left. Because the joke has always been on us. If you made it to the end of this story, drop a comment for the one and only Katt Williams. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next truth bomb, you don't want to miss it.